I will call for white people like myself to put ourselves in the shoes of those African-American families who fear every time their children go somewhere. I'm going to be talking to white people. I think we're the ones who have to start listening to the legitimate cries that are coming from our African-American fellow citizens.
Presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton weighing in on race relations as the country was mourning 5 police officers murdered because of the job they do and the color of their skin. Joining me now with a reaction, former Florida Congressman Colonel Allen West. All right, Colonel, we've got to start listening to the legitimate cries from our African-American fellow citizens. Was that an appropriate thing for her to say after 5 officers were shot?
Well, of course not, and it's a pleasure to be with you, Judge. But you have to understand that that was the most disingenuous, offensive, and pandering statement that the presumptive Democrat nominee would put out there, because this is not about rectifying the issues in the black community. I grew up in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia, in the same neighborhood that gave us Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the same high school, David T. Howard High School, that produced Clyde Frazier, Walt Frazier, who was a New York Knicks standout, as well as the incredible Mayor Maynard Jackson. Now, what needs to happen, the legitimate concerns, first and foremost, is the fact that in the 50 years since the Great Society programs of Lyndon Johnson, we've seen a 77% two-parent household in the black community drop down to 24%. We've seen horrific examples of a lack of education opportunities. As a matter of fact, it was President Obama in April 2009 who canceled the D.C. school voucher program for young minority kids, but yet his kids go to Sidwell Friends. We see a lack of small business entrepreneurship, and we see incredibly high unemployment.
Colonel, when she says that we're not listening, what are we supposed to do?
Well, the thing is that it is not that she is listening to the real legitimate concerns. What she wants to put forth is an agenda of victimization, an agenda of dependency, because that is how they continue to have this electoral stranglehold on the black community. Because if they're talking about economic independence, if they're talking about economic empowerment, that doesn't bode well for them. Therefore, they have to talk about economic enslavement, and they have to continue to stir these and stoke these flames of racism, as you saw the Minnesota governor say, and as you talked about a little bit earlier in your show and your speech yesterday, where the president continues to shift the real narrative on this issue.
But Colonel, why is it that the public isn't discussing the fact that African Americans are worse off under an African-American president and an African-American attorney general, African-American, head of Department of Homeland Security, taking out the actual words of a shooter in Orlando, and then, scrubbing all of these reports, saying that they're going to start a civil rights investigation in Louisiana. We're going to provide assistance to local authorities in Minnesota. What is this about? They can't even say the word hate crime.
Well, what it's about is a group of individuals in the Democrat Party, which really has become the new American Socialist Party. They don't want to talk about those legitimate concerns. They don't want to talk about legitimate cries. What they want to do is create the squirrel effect. They want to create the false narrative, because if anyone were to really peel the onion back, as you just said, and look at the unemployment rate, look at the breakdown of the family, look at the lack of education opportunities. You don't hear Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama talk about education choice or vouchers or charter schools or homeschooling. They don't talk about those things, which would really help the black community.
Well, but we could talk about that, and there might be a difference of opinion. It just strikes me as incredibly strange that when you have police officers who are killed, that we don't start, throwing out there the fact that we've got to support the police. And the truth is that when the police go into African-American communities, it's more dangerous for them than any other community.
Well, interestingly enough, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama are from Chicago. And you don't hear them talking about the legitimate cries and concerns that came from Independence Day weekend, when you had, I believe, 62 shootings.
Yep.
And so this, once again, has to be realized by the black community that this is disingenuous. It is nothing more than pandering, and all they're trying to do is create more victims.
And finally, Colonel West, what do you see going forward for law enforcement in this country?
Well, I think that we have to continue to wrap our arms around our law enforcement community. The church that I attend in Dallas, Watermark, one of those officers that was killed was a member of that church, and we reflected upon that today. And so we've just got to reach out and let them know that the voices that they hear are the voices of a minority, not the voices of those of us that stand with the thin blue line.
All right, Colonel Allen West, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
My pleasure.